Everyone, welcome. Glad you're here and we're ready to begin. This week we are going to look at two readings, all right? One is Tazria and the other is Mitzorah. And these are not the most exciting readings that you're going to do in Torah. They're all about laws and regulations and instructions for, number one, a woman that has had a baby, okay, and secondly, somebody who gets what has normally in English Bibles been known of as leprosy. That's all the readings are about, okay? But there's a lot more in there than what you might realize reading from an English Bible. So we're going to look at those and look at some ways in the rest of the Bible where these ideas pop up and do my best to give you a little bit of the whys on why would that be a law? Why would that be God's instruction? Why? Right? Because we are people that want to know why, right? Why do you want to know why? You're not going to answer me. Why do you want to know why? Because you're interested. Greeks want to know why. Why not? That's a good one. Greeks want to know why. Hebrews want to know, when are we going to eat? Aye. We have two available. So we have room for more. We could even invite more. You could go out to the highways and the hedges. In the highways, in the hedges. You guys don't know that one? You never watched Oh Brother, How Art Thou? In the highways, in the hedges, we'll be somewhere working for the Lord. All right, enough of that. Let's look at the readings for tonight, and let's realize and learn, or do our best to learn about this idea of clean and unclean in the Bible. It isn't what we normally think of. It is a world of its own. Okay, it's not something that it has been, I would imagine, in our lives normally. It might be a little bit. You might be a little bit more familiar with the ideas if you were raised in a Jewish environment. But most of us were not raised in a Jewish environment, and we have our ideas about what clean and unclean are. And number one, you need to realize that clean, that unclean, is not always evil. It's not always evil, and it's not always bad. Okay, so we're going to look at that and look at why. All right, the words clean and unclean are there in your notes. The Hebrew words, all right, clean is taher, and unclean is tameh. Okay, that's how you pronounce those words. What helps me more than anything in grasping this, and I don't know that I grasp it all the way, but I grasp it more than I used to grasp it, is think of it as muddy. Okay? If I have my little boy goes out and plays in the mud, okay? I may or may not have looked at him and said, Joel, do not get in the mud. Why? Why would I allow him to get in the mud? Because he's a little boy. There's nothing wrong with getting muddy, as long as you don't bring the mud into the house, on the rug, in the dining room, all of that. There's an area in the house where you go and you get rid of the mud. If it's during, July, you go to the water hose and you wash off, and then you can enter into the house, all right? Now, if he would have gone out and I would have given him an instruction because maybe he had to go to school or something, and he was going to go out for 30 minutes and play, I said, do not get in the mud. Then if he gets muddy, then it's sin because he has disobeyed. But just going out and getting muddy when it hasn't been forbidden, all that is dirt. And it washes right off with water, right? Okay, so with that in mind, realize that unclean or tame does not necessarily mean sinful or evil. There are two categories of uncleanness in the Bible. One is ritual uncleanness. Okay? Some might use the word ceremonial uncleanness, but ritual uncleanness is the way that Jewish people would look at it. And then there's the other uncleanness that is sinful. Okay? Somebody who is ritually unclean usually gets clean by waiting a certain number of days or even a day and a night and often washing their body in a mikvah or a baptism or something like that, okay? Somebody who is sinfully unclean, they can be forgiven, but first they must become clean. Okay, there's a process to all of this that's outlined in Leviticus, as we're going to find out. Okay? There's also a difference between what's known as human uncleanness and animal uncleanness. If an animal is unclean, there's nothing it can do about that. Okay? It's simply the way God made it. Okay? So an unclean animal cannot become clean. I mean, you can wash your pig all you want, but it's going to be, in God's eyes, an unclean or tame animal. All right? Now, regarding ritual cleanness, okay? Ritual purity is all about whether or not one is legally able to go in and worship God in the tabernacle and bring their offerings and basically participate in the worship system. Okay? That's what ritual cleanliness is all about. Only those who were ritually clean were allowed to go in and bring the sacrifices and participate in the offerings. Same thing with priests. Only priests who were clean and holy were allowed to do the officiating. Okay? Clean and holy are two different ideas. Okay? Clean has to do with your state of whether you're clean or unclean. Sometimes it's sinful, sometimes it isn't. Okay? Confused yet. Holiness is another matter. All right? And we'll look at that as we move on through it. Now, human beings are born or created or however you want to put it, their normal default is clean. Okay? So think about that in light of what we looked at last week with Peter and the Roman centurion that Peter believed was unclean because he was what? A Gentile. Okay? And in the Jewish laws, they had added laws, right? We know that. One of them was that you're not supposed to hang out or be with a Gentile or a goy. And the reason is they deemed them unclean. But God did not make them that way. God made all human beings clean. That's normal. Okay? So when Peter got the vision from God and then figured out what it meant, when he got to the house of Cornelius, he was like, oy vey, now I know what God meant, that I should not call anyone unclean that God has called clean. Okay? Are you with me? Okay, I don't know that I'm with me, but I'm doing my best. Okay, there are animals and there are certain things that are inherently unclean. Now, humans can be ritually unclean by, number one, touching something that is unclean, okay? Or eating something that is unclean. And if you eat something that's unclean, how long do you have to wait till you can be clean again? Does anybody know? Till evening. Okay, now, I know what you're thinking. You're out to lunch. There's the shrimp. Well, I only got 5 hours and I'll be clean again. All right, and if that's what you want to do, you're welcome to do that. But that misses the whole idea of the list of what we're to eat and what we're not to eat, just so you know. Okay? Another way that people can be unclean is by certain bodily functions that happen that are normal. Okay? And when certain things happen, you move into the category of unclean as long as that thing is going on. Okay? And it's not a virus, but it's something else, normal bodily functions. Okay? Now, as well, human beings can be made unclean by doing certain actions. Okay? Some of those actions are sinful, and that would put them in the realm of sinful uncleanness. An example of that would be prostitute. Okay? Prostitution, adultery, things like that. Okay? All right. Now, here's where you get into the movement and the process of getting to be clean. Remember, clean is not holy. They don't equal one another. No, nothing that is unclean can ever be elevated directly into a state of holiness. First, it must be made clean, and then it can be elevated into a state of holiness. Something or someone who is unclean is not allowed to be in the presence of holiness. Something that is unclean can eventually be brought into a state of holiness, but it must first become clean. So something that is unclean is not even eligible to be made holy unless it first becomes clean. Whew. See what I mean? It's another world. Okay, it's like, wow. All right, so let's read a little bit from Leviticus. Leviticus 12, starting in verse 1. Adonai said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, if a woman conceives and gives birth to a boy, she will be unclean for 7 days, with the same uncleanness as in Nidah, when she's having her menstrual period. Nida is a word that means when a woman is having her menstrual period. Okay? So, here's a progression that happens. The new mother is unclean. Okay? She didn't do anything wrong, but by the bodily function of having a baby, she is now moved into the category of unclean, which means her holiness is like on suspension, because you can't be unclean and holy all at once. Okay? In order to get back in holiness, she has to get back into being ritually clean, all right? Because as an unclean person, she can't be in the presence of holiness. Once she is clean again, she may bring the sacrifice that allows her to get back in her holiness. Okay? Do you have any questions yet? Yes? I'm glad you asked. We'll read on, and we will find it in the reading. But that's a very good question, and we're going to learn why all of this is different if you're having a girl than it is when you're having a boy. And if you're a feminist, there's nothing wrong with being a feminist of a certain ilk. Okay? If you're a feminist and you read this, you might get angry. Okay? But what I want you to know is it's the opposite of what you think it is. We'll get there in a minute. Okay? So move down to another verse. Yes, Ray.
So, since she isn't still clean with all these other days, she couldn't ever be there for the child to be circumcised?
She could on the 8th day is when circumcision would happen, but that wasn't something that happened in the holy area of the temple. That's something that happened maybe in the outer areas, all right? But it's on the 8th day. Mm-hmm. Sure, of course. Yes. Good question. If it was a boy. Okay? So if you read in verse 7, okay, this is about the offering that is made on her behalf, the mother that has had a baby. Okay, it says he being the priest, he is to present it before Adonai to make atonement for her. And then she will be cleansed from the discharge of her blood. That's the reason for the uncleanness when a baby is born. It's about the discharge of the blood. That's why it's related to the nida. Okay? You should look at your faces right now. You guys are like, And just as I'm reading this, clean and unclean and holy, if I were listening to this, I would be going, what did he just say? Wow, all right, hold on, I'm not getting you. We'll do our best, all right? Okay, this is the Torah for her who gives birth, whether a male or a female, but there's going to be differences, okay? Now, bringing new life into the world is not what caused the uncleanness. Rather, it's about the flow of blood that happens during the birthing process. The Torah compares the impurity of a new mother, with a woman who's on her monthly nida, all right? Both are unclean for a certain amount of time, and then they go through the process for getting clean again. All right? Yes?
So I think you said last week, so it's really dead blood.
Yes.
Not flowing into it.
Yes. Hence the reason for the uncleanness. Okay? And there's something else. At the beginning of the reading, all right, we read the words, Adonai said to Moses, tell the people of Israel, if a woman conceives, look at the word Tazria, which is the name of the reading, okay, which is translated, she conceives. But you know what the word is in the middle of Tazria? Tazria. Zera. Anybody know what the word zera means? Seed. So the idea is there is a seed of life. When the blood goes out, there is a seed of life going out. Okay? And the human blood that has been shed is like life being removed. So it's related in a way to death. Okay? It's not life-y, it's death-y in Robert's words. Death-y. D-E-A-T-H-Y. Okay? And since Yehovah is all about life and human beings were not created to die, and he doesn't want to be associated with death, hence a reason for being unclean in that state of not being allowed in his presence. Okay? Robert Alter, in his version of the Bible, in his notes, he wrote this: the notion that the blood of childbirth rendered the, anybody know that word? Parturient, ritually impure, was widespread in the ancient world. Okay? Jacob Milgram notes that the ancients believed there was seed in the blood discharged by childbearing women. So he proposes that the loss of blood was associated with death and henceforth conveyed impurity. Now, in order to be made clean and holy, the new mother had to, number one, wait a set period of time. That period varies depending on whether you have a boy or you have a girl. Okay? That's number one. Second, she had to be immersed in water. Okay? A mikvah, a cleaning, if you will. And then she had to bring an offering that was a sin offering. Why? Why would she need to do that? Well, why would anybody need to do that? What, James? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, the idea is why did they make sin offerings? What did those do? For whom were those? Okay, all right. But I mean the one that offered it, the one that brought it. If I bring one in, what sins is it going to cover? Inadvertent. Things that I didn't know. Things that ways that I sinned and I didn't even know of it. Now, I may be aware of it now, but when it happened, I was not aware of it. That's what the sin offerings were there for. They were not there for rebellious, intentional sins. There was nothing in the Levitical system that covered those. Okay? Yes, Patty. Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah, that's right. Yep. And their offerings that were brought in order to help one draw near, because that's what the word means. Korban, draw near. They were drawing nears, okay? In the ancient world, that's the way it worked. Okay, now, there are ways that it works that way today, in that when I draw near, I am drawing near through Yeshua, who is my sacrifice, right? My sin sacrifice. That means I don't need to bring a lamb or anything else, doves, pigeons, whatever, because he is that for me. But I am to never let go of the realization that he is that for me, and I am to offer up another sacrifice. According to the book of Hebrews, what is that? Yes, my life. Okay, grateful heart that is expressed in praise. Sacrifice of praise. Okay, so I don't bring a lamb, I bring praise, thanksgiving, a grateful heart. All those answers are right. Okay, so when we trust in and receive Yeshua as our Messiah and Lord, then we have a change in us from the world to members of the kingdom of Yehovah, from darkness into light. And listen, this is really neat. Once we are cleansed by Yeshua, since he is the living water, we're going to be cleansed in water. Okay, he's the living water. All right, then we can be made holy by his blood. So it isn't only the blood, it's the blood and the water. Did you ever wonder why when they stabbed him, it is written in the gospel that blood and water? You know, it's not just proof that he was dead. All right, there's something else going on in that that's very symbolic, and this is why. Water makes clean. Blood brings atonement. Okay? Both of those are needed. This is why in John's letter, he writes, he, meaning Yeshua, is the one who came by means of water and blood. Yeshua the Messiah. Not with water only, but with water and blood. And the Spirit bears witness, because the Spirit is the truth. Now, if you were reading from your NIV or your New American Standard Bible or your King James Version or whatever it is, and you're reading the letters and you're reading along in this letter of John, and you get to that verse, if you do not know the Levitical offerings and the whole system of clean and unclean, there's no way you can understand that. You read that, it goes, poof. It's like, I have no idea what that means. Water and blood. Anybody else ever done that? Like you read it and you were like, I don't know. I give up. Someday I'll know. One day by and by, I'll know what in the world that means. Okay, well now it isn't by and by. It's now, and now you know what it means. All right? Now, this is really important. This is what Tom Bradford writes about this. Okay? I want to reiterate, see if I can make my voice as good as his, but probably not. I want to reiterate in the strongest possible terms that unclean is not a state that a believer in Yeshua faces any longer. Stop right there. Say hallelujah. Okay? As a result of your trust in Christ, all right, you remain holy and clean. In fact, as I have explained, by all I can ascertain from the Holy Scripture, no believer can ever be defiled into an unclean condition as long as they are a believer, because Yeshua's atoning blood is at work at every moment. Now, we need to realize what he means by being a believer. Okay? Being a believer doesn't mean once you made a, statement or something, I believe. That's not the meaning of being a believer. Being a believer means you are in an ongoing relationship with Yeshua, where he brings his blood and cleansing for your sins, all right? And you are living a life for him. Okay? Yes? Yes. Yes. Well, that may be, but I don't think those are the ones that we're reading about. Yeah. Well, if a woman is in her niddah now, and you're a believer in Yeshua, you are not excluded from the worship anymore. Okay? He is your cleanliness. He is the one who has made you clean. In other words, that's not something that we worry about anymore. Okay? It's something that we read about, and we read about Yeshua becoming unclean ceremonially. Did you know that? That Yeshua made himself unclean. Can you think of when that happened? Touched the leper. Okay, there's no way you could touch anybody without becoming unclean. All right, so what does that mean? That means that this unclean is something ancient, something that's in the Bible, something that helps me to understand and even to understand the reasons for it. But it does things like it elevates birth. Okay, birth is more than just, popping a baby out. Birth is something that's very holy and all that. So, was that somebody online? Matthew, was that you? Go ahead.
If I have a plate of shrimp before church, am I clean or unclean?
Okay, so you're just bad. No, I'm joking with you about that. Here's what this sounds like me trying to get out of a situation answer, but it isn't. Why don't you ask the Holy Spirit about eating that? Okay? Ask the Holy Spirit. So if I do something that is against Torah by my own free will, am I sinning? Yes. Okay? So then the question is not rather, am I clean or unclean? The question is, am I holy or unholy? Okay? And if I'm unholy, then the question is why? And the only answer is because my heart's not right. Okay? Because if my heart's right, I'm going to do my best not to do things like that. Thank God when I do, He's there. And He brings His forgiveness and He brings His grace. Well, isn't that just a license for sinning? No, if you are looking for a license, then your heart isn't right. Okay, which might mean that you're not even one of these people that Tom Bradford was writing about that's a believer. Okay, so get your heart right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Those are bodily things. But listen, here's another reason why it's in a way it's not relevant for us. Okay? What is it that they were not allowed to do? If you're unclean in Leviticus, what were you not allowed to do? Can you do that now? No. So how's it relevant? Go ahead, Mark. However. Here, let me give you the mic.
All right, I heard it taught to me this way, and to me it made sense. Because you correlate the temple, the altar, clean, unclean, sacrifice. The altar, as we knew it, was destroyed in 70 AD when the temple was destroyed. So where is the altar today? Here, right? So if the sovereign didn't want a pig or a shrimp or whatever on his altar, why would he want it on this altar here? Okay. That's how I had it explained to me. So we don't treat the sovereign of the universe as a cosmic ATM machine, and we don't treat Yeshua as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Okay. Shema, hear and do. Obey.
So what does it mean if I am treating him like that? What does it mean about me? My heart's not right. Okay? So that matters. That's a big deal. James. That God has made clean. Correct. No, only, yes, but the idea is you're not unclean due to the fact that you're a Gentile. You may be unclean due to the fact that you're sinning against God. There's an uncleanness that comes along with that. But Cornelius was a God-fearer. He may very well have had a relationship where he was living right for God. That's not who. Yeah, but you gotta finish the sentence. He said, "No man." Where are you reading in Acts? He said, "No man unclean." And that's the end of the sentence. Yeah. You're right. Right. Yes. Well, I wouldn't use any of this language with them. Yes. Right. Which is what Mark was bringing up with the idea of you being the temple, and your temple can be clean or unclean. Okay? But we're being very specific about what was in Leviticus. That it's about going in, making your offering in the temple, and you're not allowed to do that if you're in a state of ritual uncleanness or sinful uncleanness. David. Correct. Right. That's right. And he was wrong in those. Right. 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 Maybe. You knew I would say it, then why did you ask? Mm. Right. And I don't know that. Okay, let me put this a different way. Okay? I don't know that for us this idea has a lot of relevance. What we're bringing up and arguing, debating about. Yeah. I don't know that it has a lot of relevance. It has a lot of relevance if you're Jewish and non-Jewish and you're dealing with Levitical law. I think what Tom Bradford is bringing up for everybody who's sitting there thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm unclean right now," is look, Yeshua makes us clean and holy by water and by blood. And the reason is that's the way you were made clean and holy. In Leviticus was by water and by blood. That's the point with it. The reason I brought up Peter is that the idea is it's all human beings are born, or their normal position is clean, unless they're sinful, doing things that are sinful, or they're in one of those positions like a woman in her niddah or given birth or whatever. Other than that, human beings by their creation, when God created Adam and Hava, they weren't unclean. Why? Yes, but are you making the assumption that every human being sins every second of the day? But, James, where did you get the idea that we're born with a sin nature? I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Of course. Absolutely. Well, then you better stop it. No, I get it, but I guess what I don't get is I don't get the connection that you're making with Peter and Cornelius. I don't know how that's. It's almost like you're arguing with the book of Acts. I can't. What's Ray? Oh, yeah, there is. They're not, right. Yes. Yes. Okay, I get it. Yeah. That works. We're going to move on. Because we could sit right here for an hour. And I love it. I like debating and everything. But there are some other little nuggets that I want to get to, except Patty has her finger up. Go ahead.
We tend to think of clean as a positive, unclean as a negative. So when these ladies had given birth and then they were considered unclean, but that was not looked at as a negative. They were given those 7 days to mourn the possibility that a baby was not produced. And so we need to keep clean and unclean kind of straightened out in our minds. They're different, they're separated, and there's so much more to it too.
Yes. Right. Good. All right. We'll move on. Maybe we get to the end. We'll go back. Okay. If new mother was unclean 7 days, then on the 8th day, if her baby was a boy, he was to be circumcised. Okay. 8 is the number of new life and new beginnings, and the mother would have to wait another. If it was a boy, the mother would have to wait another 33 days till she could be clean again, bringing it to a total of 40 days. If it was a girl, it was 80 days. Okay? From boy, if you give birth to a baby boy, you can be ritually clean in 40 days. If you give birth to a baby girl, you can be clean in 80 days. Okay, so this is where I get to where women would go, what? Why is she being penalized for having a girl instead of a boy? It has nothing to do with a penalty at all. That's not what this is about, okay? The significance of a baby girl was greater than a boy. In Hebrew Jewish minds, a baby girl was more significant. I don't know if I'd use the word valuable, but a baby girl was more significant than a baby boy because the birth of a girl meant that another womb had entered the world. Okay? And the girl represents the continuity of life. All right? Because of that womb, the girl represents the continuity of life. And this is one of the reasons why abortion is more in the Jewish mind, at least the God-fearing Jewish mind. Abortion is known as killing a whole world, not just one individual. Okay? Because it's about generations and lines of people. So, okay, verse 6, when the days of her purification are over, whether a son or a daughter, she is to bring a lamb of the first year of the burnt offering and a young pigeon or a dove for the sin offering to the ends of the tent of meeting to the Cohen. All right? And then we read, if she cannot afford a lamb, she's to take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And this, by the way, plays right into what we read in Luke about Miriam, and Joseph. When they brought their offering, what did they bring? Pigeons, birds. Okay, what does that tell you right away? They didn't have enough money to get the larger, more expensive offering. Did they have money later? Yeah, because they were giving gifts. Gold, frankincense and myrrh. They were given gifts, right? Okay. But they were given those gifts when Yeshua was probably 2 years old. So, yes, Rita.
It's confusing to me that she would be bringing a sin offering when she just had a baby, and it's a greater significance.
Yes, however, the law was bring it anyway. Okay? It's like starting anew, and it may have been one of those, just in case I've done something, just in case I've said something. You know, it's almost like coming into a room and saying, Lord, forgive me. I don't know if I've done anything today, but if I have, forgive me. Same thing. Same idea. Okay? Kind of a position of humility to bring an offering like that. Okay? Okay, next we're going to look at leprosy. which really isn't leprosy, it's tsara'at, okay? Tsara'at is where we go into the 13th chapter here. Adonai said to Moses and Aaron, if someone develops on his skin a swelling, scab, or bright spot, which develop into the diseased Sara'at, he is to be brought to Aaron the Cohen or to one of his sons who are the Kohanim. Okay? Sara'at means a mark. It doesn't mean leprosy, which is a disease that's, it's not all the way eradicated in the world, but almost. Known as Hansen's disease, which is infection, and it's contagious. And I think that I know there's an island in Hawaii that was devoted to lepers who would not be able to live around others because they were worried about catching the disease. And that you can go there today and visit the colony on the island of Molokai, right? Or you can go there and go hunting for amazing deer on Molokai. They have access deer that you can hunt for $3,000. Plus your plane tickets and lodging and all that, okay? That's expensive meat, but it's really good, I hear. Okay, we don't need to look at all of this. There's a quote there by Alter, which is good. There's a complete Jewish study Bible. The bottom line is that why all of this, why is all of this, these words in Leviticus devoted to this rash? If somebody gets a rash, okay, the rash might be sara'at, all right? Well, the word that was given to those that had sara'at is metzora, which is the name of our reading. Isn't that right? Is that the name of our reading? Okay. Metzora is one who has sara'at. Well, what does metzora mean? Metzora is made up of two Hebrew words, okay? Mitzi, which means speaking, and ra, which means evil. So that means a metzora literally is an evil speaker, somebody who speaks evil. In modern words, we could call that somebody who slanders, or somebody who maybe is a gossip, okay, is a metzora in the Bible. Okay, in the Hebrew world, someone who's a metzora or an evil speaker, this speaking that they did was known as lashon hara. You guys have already heard about this, right? Almost everybody has heard about this. Evil speaking. Lashon hara means literally the evil tongue. It was and is considered extremely evil because of the extreme power of words. So here's something that is written in the writing by a guy named Chofetz Chaim, famous rabbi. Lashon hara is defined as information which is either derogatory or potentially harmful to another individual. A derogatory statement about someone is lashon hara, even if it will definitely not cause the person any harm. To focus on the shortcomings of another person is in itself wrong. A statement that could potentially bring harm to someone, be it financial, physical, psychological, or otherwise, is lashon hara, even if the information is not negative. Even true statements which are derogatory or harmful are lashon hara. Now, mind you, what was that, Patty? Philippians 4:8. Let no unwholesome word proceed out of your mouth, but only that which is for what? Building up, right? Exhorting and edifying and building up, okay? Now, mind you, that was written by a rabbi, and sometimes rabbis add things. Okay? Some of that may be added because I think back, well, didn't Yeshua look at the religious leaders and call them snakes, vipers, and offspring of vipers? I vote yes. I vote yes with that. I think the idea here is when you're dealing with your relationships with people that you know. Like the Sermon on the Mount is all about relationships. It's all about interpersonal relationships. It's not about laws for the government. It's about relationships, when you're in relationships. Okay? If somebody asks you for this, a brother asks you for this, don't just blow them off, kind of thing. All right? Now, this example is given of Miriam, Moses' sister, when in the book of Numbers, Miriam and Aaron began criticizing Moses on account of the Ethiopian woman he had married, for he had in fact married an Ethiopian woman. Who was that Ethiopian woman? Zipporah. Okay? Sometimes people think, whoa, Moses married another wife? No, Zipporah. Okay? Ethiopia was a region that went well up into Midian in the day. So, anyway, they were talking smack about Moses because of this woman. Well, Moses married that woman. You know how that is. So then what happened is Yehovah said, oh, really? Showed up and let them know that that was not acceptable. Okay? He disciplined Miriam and Aaron because they complained about Moses. And then we read right after that in the book of Numbers, when the cloud was removed from above the tent, in other words, the presence of Yehovah went up. When that happened, Miriam had sarat, as white as snow. Aaron looked at Miriam, and she was as white as snow. Why? Because she had sarat. Why? Because she practiced lashon hara against Moses. Now, when you had this disease, we're going to see that down further down. Normally, the prescribed waiting period is 7 days, and that's exactly how long Miriam had to wait till she was able to be cleaned. Moses pled on Miriam's behalf, like he normally did with people. He got in the middle and he was like, "Hold on, don't get so mad. Don't strike her down with lightning." And Yehovah was like, "All right, I won't strike her down with lightning, but 7 days, sarat. She has the mark." Okay. Kiel and Delitzsch, an old German commentary that I used to have in my library, gives an answer to why only Miriam got the sarat. Why not Aaron? Because when you read, it says Miriam and Aaron were blah, 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 blah. Okay? Here's the reason given in this commentary, that Miriam was the instigator of the open rebellion, as we may see both from the fact that her name stands before Aaron's, it was Miriam and Aaron, and also from the use of the feminine for the Hebrew word spoke in Numbers 12:1. Aaron followed her, being no more able to resist the suggestions of his sister than he had formerly been able to resist the desire of the people for the golden idol. In other words, Aaron was like, "Oh, yeah." Okay? Furthermore, when Yehovah summoned the three of them, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, to the door of the tabernacle, he called to Aaron and Miriam and said this. By the way, you realize you're dealing with, like, family, brothers and sisters, okay? Hey, you, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, get over here now. Right? Okay? He said, listen to what I say. When there is a prophet among you, I, Adonai, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. But it isn't that way with my servant Moses. He is the only one who is faithful in my entire household. With him I speak face to face and clearly, not in riddles. He sees the image of Adonai. So why weren't you afraid to criticize my servant Moses? So think of that in familial, you can think of it in familial relationships. You have a daughter who does everything right, and she's your favorite. Wait a minute. Parents aren't supposed to have favorites. Really? Don't you guys have favorites? No, you can't ever say that. But here's your favorite that loves you and does what you want and is just great. And then here are these other ones that, they're along, but they're up and down and up and down. And the younger ones, they start going, I just can't believe they just love her more than me. They're just going, and the dad steps in and goes, hey, don't you be talking about your daughter that way. Your daughter and I are like this. Okay? Same thing, same idea. God's letting Aaron and Miriam know, you guys may be prophets. Big deal. Moses and I are like this. Okay? Even though Moses is known as a prophet. Okay. Yes. Okay. Sarat. Yep. Yes. Well, Naaman wasn't Israelite. So it was only in the Jewish world that they weren't. Naaman was a goy. Yep. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Where is the line between evil speaking and talking to a friend about somebody that hurt you and trying to work through your feelings?
Well, I think those are different things. I think that I think those are completely different. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking to somebody and letting them know that you were, whatever, hurt or whatever it is, in order that other individual might help lead you in forgiveness. Okay, so like if you're sitting out there and you say something like, well, my mom did this, and then you reveal what it is that your mom did, and then I ask, well, do you want to forgive your mom for doing that? None of that is Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is kind of when you have a motive of non-humility, pride, spirit where you want to be better than the other and everybody else, and so you talk down about others. Same thing that you brought up when you brought up Paul's words. Don't let anything unwholesome come out of your mouth, but only that which is used for building up. So, same principle. It's an easy principle. Now, if you read this when you read it, you're going to read about the diagnosis and how that works, that the person is diagnosed by a priest who examines him, and then the priest either declares them unclean, where they have to go out of the camp, or, go live out there till they're made clean, or he can wait another 7 days. And it goes on and on and on like that until somebody is cleansed from their tsarat. Okay? Consequences are given in verse 45. Everyone who has tsarat sores is to wear torn clothes and unbound hair, which, by the way, is a symbol of mourning. Okay? And cover his upper lip and cry, unclean, unclean. As long as he has sores, he will be unclean. Since he is unclean, he must live in isolation. He must live outside the camp. So, here's somebody who has a mark, a rash that's a mark. That rash is given because they were mouthing off in a bad way. So, God has them cover their mouth, and they have, if there are other people around them, they have to go unclean, unclean, with their hand over their mouth. Why would that be? Because it was their mouth that got him in trouble. It was their mouth that was unclean. So it's like one of those things in the physical realm that manifests something that's going on in the spirit realm, right? And we know in the New Testament there are all sorts of warnings about speaking and how we speak to one another. There are some examples that are given there. One is Yeshua. What makes a person unclean is what not goes into his mouth, rather what comes out of his mouth. That is what makes him unclean. Okay? James, anyone who thinks he is religiously observant but does not control his tongue is deceiving himself, and his observance counts for nada, nothing. And then Ephesians, let no harmful word come from your mouth, only good words that are helpful in meeting the need, words that will benefit those who hear them. Okay? Then there's one other principle that I wanted to bring up that's a Torah principle. That is that in Deuteronomy we read, one witness alone will not be sufficient to convict a person of any offense or sin of any kind. The matter will be established only if there are 2 or 3 witnesses testifying against him. So imagine a courtroom. Okay? And here's a courtroom, and this individual over here has done something wrong, and they're brought into the courtroom. And in a courtroom, there is an accuser. Who is the accuser in the Bible? Satan. We read that in Revelation. He's the one that accuses day and night. So if you are thinking about this courtroom, this heavenly courtroom, the accuser is there bringing charges against anybody who has ever sinned against God. Okay? Brothers and sisters, the brethren. He's accusing. When we speak evil about others, the enemy is able to use our words to be a second witness. Not only did he do this, but so-and-so over here is talking about the way that he does that. I want to use that as evidence in this room. So not something that I believe we want to be involved in. We don't want to be the enemy's corroborating witness. Now, might it be true that that individual did that? Yes, it might be. But I don't need to go around blabbing about it, do I? That's the whole point, is don't go around blabbing about what everybody else is doing when they're doing wrong. Try to help. You're not going to help by... I have Baptist in my background. You're not going to help by blabbing about it. You might not help by bringing it up in a prayer meeting. Well, I don't know if you all know what Jimmy did, but I was a witness to what Jimmy did, and he did this. We need to pray for him. Okay? No. Yes, you need to pray for him, but you don't need to go around blabbing it. Right? That's right. There's a line. Matthew asked, where's the line? I don't know. We do. Sometimes it is. No, I don't think that's right. I don't think we just let it go by. I think we realize there's a difference in having dialogue about somebody's actions that are affecting others, like Pharaoh in Egypt was evil. He was doing evil and harming others in his doing of evil. Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with addressing that and addressing it just that way, like it is in the Bible. But sometimes we get off on just downgrading them all to where they're not even human beings anymore. Well, she's a bleep, bleep, bleep. I wish she'd just bleep. All that, I don't think that's right. I think there's a line. I think that's going over the line. That's right. Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. If only you were going to be at the ministry school, you'll learn that again. That's exactly right. Okay. Things that are making your blood pressure rise, probably not good. Turn off. Well, it depends on what you watch. When we go off the air in a minute, I'll tell you what I watch. All right. Restoration. There was this process. Number one, they had to be healed of the zaharat, meaning the dots had to go away. Then they had to be declared healed by a priest. Then they had to be made clean through the purification process. And then they had to bring a sacrifice so they could be made holy again. Okay? And in this cleansing process, that there's a ritual, and I listed the items in this ritual. I listed them out last year when we did this Torah portion as well. You had to have these items: one live clean bird to give its blood, and one to be released. Cedar wood, scarlet, hyssop, a clay pot, and living water. And you would combine these things together and wave one of them around and put it in the pot. And it was, you read about it. It's like, what? That's kind of bizarre, reading about what they had to do about it. Now, every one of those items can have applications that have to do with Messiah. Okay? The bird that gives its blood, Messiah gave his blood. The bird that is to be released is that your words that were evil will not be remembered if you have repented for them, and his blood covers them. Like any other sin, it leaves. Right? Okay? The wood, cedar wood, represents pride, which is where evil speaking originates, usually. Okay? Scarlet is wool. That's from the lamb, made with dye from a worm. Okay? Hyssop is the plant that was used in Egypt to put the lamb's blood on the door. A clay pot is an earthen vessel, since Messiah was an earthen vessel, and so are you. and living water. That which flows, Yeshua gives the living water. So we can look at all those, and that's fine. That's very interesting. There's really no cure for Sa'arat other than the supernatural miracle of God. So if we look down in the Gospel of Mark, there's a man came to Yeshua with Sa'arat, and he came to him on his knees, and he said, if you are willing, you can make me what? Clean. Moved with pity, Yeshua reached out his hand, touched him, and said, I am willing, be cleansed. Instantly, the Sa'arat left him, and he was cleansed. So that means in one moment, Yeshua made him clean and holy in a way. Okay? However, Yeshua's blood, well, let's not go into that. Let's just read the rest of it, okay? Instantly the Sa'arat left him and he was cleansed. Yeshua sent him away with this stern warning. See to it that you tell no one. Instead, as a testimony to the people, go and let the priest examine you and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded. Okay, so in other words, go and do what it is in Leviticus. I've handled getting rid of the Sa'arat. I am making you clean, but you still have to go to the priest and you still have to bring in the offering. Okay? What's interesting is that first century Jews believed that when the Messiah arrived, he would do 4 miracles that only Messiah would be able to do. Cast out a mute demon, okay, heal a man born blind, raise a man from the dead after 4 days, and cleanse a leper, heal a leper, a metzora. So, thus ends the reading. Now, let's go back to this idea of clean and unclean and all of that, and I'll be glad to listen to your thoughts. James, David, anybody? David's got it, nailed. Wait. Wrong, you do. Well, I mean, why are you getting the idea? Where are you getting the idea that you are born unclean? Where do you get that idea? Yes, it's in the world, but it isn't on you till you do it. Okay, hold on. We prove it in the Bible your way. Of course. Yes. So you mean a 1-day-old baby is sinning against God? I thought that's exactly what you just brought up. Weren't your words, we are born unclean? Weren't those your words? You have both natures in you. Clean in what way? Are you speaking of ritual cleanliness or sinful cleanliness? Sure. Right. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. Yes. 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 I agree with that. Yes. So, in other words, if I'm hearing you right, what you are bringing up is that what God was doing was letting Peter and all of us know that we ought to never call anyone unclean, whether they are or not. Yeah. Yes. I agree with that. See, I knew that we would get to agreement on this because I knew that we did. It just sometimes I was confused by what sounded like ideas that were added. Yeah, you could be rough. Absolutely. Yes. Which would be unclean, by the way. Right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Uh-huh. Yep. Yes. Mark? I should have given James the mic, but usually your voice is loud enough that we can carries. Can yours, or do you want the mic?
You have to look at the context it was written. All right. A lot of folks get wrapped around the axle thinking that it's about food. It's not. A lot of folks get wrapped around the axle because you've got halakha, you've got rabbinic law, you've got Torah, and they're not necessarily all the same. All right. So now, if those leaders, the high priest, which I think I mentioned this, I don't know, last week, any serious student of the Bible knows that Caiaphas and Annas were not priests. They were political appointees of Rome. They did not come through the Aaronic order. It was John the Baptist who was the legitimate priest. He had the right lineage. So you're looking at a man-made law, which you're aware of, and that's what he was trying to get across. Now, if these good Jewish boys knew the Torah, and a lot of them did, then they would have differentiated that teaching wasn't right. Cornelius, who was a Gentile, doesn't the Torah teach one law for the native born, for the sojourner, for the stranger who dwells among you? So it's a matter of personal choice. Now, I tend to agree with Pat that we're not born with a sin nature like you've heard maybe in a traditional church, but rather you have free will and you choose. I set before you blessing and curse, life and death. Choose. Now that's what I believe. Okay. So, well, of course. So anyhow, that's what free will is. So you have the ability to choose. Now, as far as I mean, there was a lot of ground covered tonight, about judging and Lashon Hara, and but I think you mention it. It's about your relationships, your personal relationships in here, in your family, in your community in which you live, in your assembly, in a house of worship like this, as opposed to a political leader that's the Pharaoh, who he'll never hear our words. He'll never be affected by what we say. He'll be affected by our vote, but we hope. Okay. But if we say, what's going on in the world, I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. All right. Yeah, we shouldn't judge, but what's obvious is obvious. And what's going on in our country right now is very destructive. It's very harmful. And we need to be salt and light in this world until the Messiah comes to rule and reign. We have to hold the line, and we have to be salt and light in a very dark world. And that's where that free will comes. We have to choose, So hopefully we're going to choose life. And you're right, no one comes to the Father, but, his words are true. So, but it does. I'm sorry? We're not supposed to judge like with the Lashon Hara, like condemn. Yeah, I'm not supposed to, to try and judge, Patty. But what I say about the political leaders in Washington, I mean that's, yeah, snakes and vipers.
Go! Go! Snakes and vipers. If you watch, if you have Daily Wire and you watch the presentation on Exodus, it is something that will let you know, I want to let you know, that what happened in here tonight, I love. It's Midrash, and this is the way we learn, all right? And that's what they're doing in this presentation of Exodus, is they're doing Midrash. And it's amazing, because Dennis Prager gets sideways a little bit with some of the other guys, because he's the only Jew on the whole panel. So he has this wealth of knowledge of the Hebrew and Jewish background that the other guys don't. And he brings it in, but sometimes they'll bring stuff up that'll be just like a normal Christian doctrine that all of us have heard. And Dennis will be like, wait a minute, what? What is that? And it's fascinating. So it's worth the watch. So the bottom line is go and read your Bible. I was gonna say go and be nice, but not always. Be kind. Be nice to cats. If you've read any of Jordan Peterson's book, that's one of his chapters in his 12 Rules for Life, which is a really good book, by the way. 12 Rules for Life. Yep. Oh, he almost died. Yeah. And he was not only, he was sick in many different ways. Physically ill, mentally ill. He had the whole 9 yards, and he got on, and he doesn't, of course he wouldn't mind me talking about it, because he does on his program. He got on benzos. You know what benzos are? He had a doctor, psychiatrist, put him on benzodiazepine or something like that, called benzos. Put him on those, and that's what killed him, just about killed him. And trying to get off of them, he had to be, his daughter flew him to Russia and then Florida, and it was at the beginning of COVID when all of that began to happen, so it was a mess. But anyway, bless all of you. Great. Have a great week, the rest of your week. Father, we give you glory and honor tonight, and thanks that your word is right, and we here as human beings doing the best that we can do, and thank you that you bring revelation of your goodness and your grace and a way for us to walk. Amen.